Welcome to the Clear the Shelf podcast with Chris and Chris, the show that meets at the intersection of education and entertainment to discuss online arbitrage, retail arbitrage, wholesale, and all facets of selling on Amazon. We'll bring you news, tactics, strategies, insights, stories, and interviews to help you grow your Amazon business. And now, here are your hosts, Chris Grant and Chris Rasick. What's up, Amazon sellers, and welcome back to the Clear the Shelf podcast with myself and my dipnosophistic co-host, Chris Rasick. Today, we've got Ryan Kimura on the show, an Amazon seller who has seemed to crack the code on something a lot of us just dream about, building a business that actually kind of gives you your life back. Ryan recently posted that he hit $2 million in the rolling 12 months, and he's doing it in just 20 hours a week of actual focused work. He went from grinding 70-hour weeks running a restaurant to having the freedom to take his family to Disney World on a Tuesday afternoon while his business is not burning down around him. Ryan has kind of built, I think, what we all want, like a business that runs largely on replens with a small team. So today we're going to dive into exactly how he did it, what he would do differently, and how you can apply his systems to your own business. Ryan, thanks so much for taking the time to be here, man.
Hey guys, very honored to be here. Long time listener, so first time podcaster.
I appreciate it. Before we get started, you guys know the drill. We spend minutes preparing for each one of these episodes. So if you get some value from this podcast, do us a solid, pound that like button, hit subscribe, drop a comment. The best way for us to grow this podcast is by getting you to interact with the show and letting us know that this is the content you want to see. You keep your end of the bargain, and we'll keep showing up and bringing you some education mixed with a little bit of entertainment. So, all right, let's dive in. We've got a ton of questions, and so Ryan, I kind of want to start from kind of the beginning, kind of get your background. Like, you went from 70 hours a week running a restaurant, and now you're down to 20 hours a week, just focused work. Can you kind of walk us through like what made you realize that you needed or wanted to change in your life, and kind of what led you to Amazon?
Gotcha. Yeah. We actually started a Amazon account in, I want to say, February of 2019. My wife and I. We had our first daughter, our first child, I should say, in April of 2018. So she wanted to stay home. We actually both worked at the restaurant. It was our restaurant. She served up front. I was, cooking in the back or doing whatever else we needed to do. But so I was actually lucky enough for the first, about 8 months or so of our life to, really be home. We had enough staffing. I didn't have to work that much. I wasn't working 70 hours a week yet. But pretty much at the turn of the year going into 2019, it shifted where I had to be there. Like, I had to be there. We lost one of our chefs. We lost a couple other people. I couldn't hold staff. So I was literally there 6 to 7 days a week, like 11, 12 hours a day. So, I mean, I missed, I got the first 8 months, and I missed probably the next 12 months of just constantly being on call, or, I was at the restaurant constantly. So I kind of threw it by my wife. I was like, hey, let's get, I've heard, we can start this Amazon arbitrage business, that's in 2019. She said, oh yeah, that's, so she's the one that actually started doing it. So, we're doing the usual Ross, Marshalls, TJ Maxx. We're going there, scanning all kinds of things. And I remember just being extremely frustrated. Like, I can't find anything. I can't find anything. So we finally started to get a very little traction. We started to get going. And I want to say right around 2020, when the pandemic hit, of course, all of our, restaurants got shut down. We had a little bit more time just because I could run with less staff. So, we were able to get into it more, focus more. And I remember coming across, this is like, I don't know where, I came across it in, I believe in Facebook or some kind of Facebook post where, instead of there was somebody just was like, instead of scanning stuff, you can actually look at things like a buyer looks at things. So, start entering things into Amazon like a buyer would. Like, you wouldn't, like, buyers don't scan stuff into Amazon. Like, they put keywords in, right? And that, like, immediately, like, clicked. So I want to say in June or July of 2020, I mean, this was pandemic time. So, of course, there was tons of things that were on fire. And we were lucky enough to like hit pool floats. And I remember we went from like 6,000 a month to like 40 or 50,000 a month, like almost instantly, right? And from then on, we just were doing like it just kept going from there. We got into Facebook groups. We networked out. We were, sellers were talking to each other. This is good, that's good, right? So we went from pool floats to, I remember, it was just all kinds of like grocery items were on fire back then. If you could just get certain grocery items that were good. We ran into going all into the next summer, 2021. We hit the big chlorine craze, right? And pools are still a really big thing. So of course, by then we're hitting our 100,000 months. It was one of those. Pretty much all FBM was RA FBM, right? So through 2021, my wife got pregnant again, and my son was born in October of 2021. So by then I was like, this is not really feasible anymore. I mean, this is not. I mean, I can't be up. I was up at like 5 o'clock every morning. I'm trying to hit these stores that like, and they're not close to us, Chris. Like, I mean, they're talking like farm. We're hitting these things that are an hour away at least, right? Because these are these little like rural stores that still have inventory. And I'm literally loading up my car. I'm coming home. I'm having to package everything up. I have to, get everything on my front doorstep to get them out the next day. I'm like, this is not feasible. I already knew online arbitrage was a thing. So I really just I literally almost did a dead stop as soon as my son was born and said, we're going to do online arbitrage from here on out.
Nice.
Hey, so, most people, I think most people think that you would need a huge team to hit 2 million in sales. But you're doing it with a small team, right? And a prep center. So, and I think that's a fairly common time frame. Like that's basically the time frame when I came into play. It got serious around the pandemic, in that 5 to 6 year range. So you watched a whole lot of people kind of scale, and not everyone was successful and whatnot. And so I'm curious of your opinion on what you think maybe the biggest misconception is about scaling your Amazon business.
I think the real misconception, I think you have to, Grant, I remember a few weeks ago, I think it was maybe a month ago on your podcast. I mean, he made up a really good point of, when you're starting off, you're sourcing one way, you're really just trying to learn the process, right? And, you hit that, you're going to hit this point, you hit that first 10,000, which I always think is the hardest because it's just proof of concept. And then, everybody else gets stuck in this like 20 to like 40,000 range, which we were stuck at it for a very long time. And the biggest, what I had to learn was, and this was getting into like masterminds with other people, was that it's no longer going, completely wide and very shallow. Like it's literally, you have to go deep. Like if you want to scale up, like if you want to get that $100,000 month or $150,000 month, like every single one of these sellers are going deep. Like they're not letting their inventory run out of stock. I mean, it's beneficial in so many ways. I mean, just, Amazon gives you the $5 more. You are literally leaving money on the table if you are out of stock. So, it was just literally focusing on, starting to focus and being able to have that confidence, knowing that, hey, other people are scaling this at, doing exactly what I'm doing, except the difference is they're buying 50 and I'm buying 10.
Do you think do you think you transferred any skills as far as like inventory management from your restaurant experience over to the Amazon business?
From the restaurant, no, but I did have a different business before that. We ran like sundry retail out of at some of the resorts around here in the Orlando area. So from there, like I already had retail experience from that. My last actual real job was, actually in retail management. That was 20 something years ago, so I did have some type of experience with that. But as far as like restaurants it wasn't so much the inventory side of it. That's more of restaurants are more just, that was extremely hard, and everything else is easy from there.
Well, there's a bit of forecasting though, which is why I ask. I thought maybe
right
transferred.
Yeah, there is forecasting, but from my last business, I think it transfers over more. With restaurants, you're not forecasting too far ahead just because you have such, there's expirations, or, you only can buy so much stuff, right? It's fresh foods. You have, a week max on a lot of these things, right? So yes, you are looking at, okay, what days am I busy? What days am I not busy? So that part course always helps, but software and stuff is a lot easier to help with forecasting than I think trying to do it right off the top of your head.
How now that you've transitioned to OA, like how do you structure your business so things get handled without you necessarily having to handle everything yourself?
I mean, I actually still handle a lot of it. I do have a VA that helps me source. I do share VAs with a few other sellers that gives me constant leads. So leads are almost never an issue. I've actually found that just creating SOPs as far for myself, like I have certain days I'm doing certain things. So on Mondays, I'm doing my profit first sheet. I'm making sure all my bookkeeping reports are in. Like just make sure I'm listing it down so it actually gets done. Right? It's a lot easier that way. I have to have it listed down. If not, you're kind of just shooting. You're all over the place, right? You're just like, oh, I have to do this, I have to do that. But if you're actually listing it down, you have it in your calendar where it's it's constantly listed, and you're not even thinking about getting it done. You're just like, okay, boom, it's there, it popped up, let's get it done. Right? Next thing, boom, you're there, get it done. So it's more just honestly, I think it's just more of a focus issue. I think people waste a lot of energy just thinking about what they need to get done instead of just just get it done. Like I always tell people like ready, fire, aim, right? Like just that's just like a fatal mistake. I mean, just get it done first. Like get moving somehow, especially when you get first getting started, right?
Yeah.
So,
Eat that frog, they say.
exactly.
Hey, so Ryan, I want to dig into the transition a little bit more from RA to OA. That's really interesting. What was the first sign that RA wasn't going to get you where you wanted to go? I mean, I know you mentioned the family dynamic had something to do with it, but talk about the business mental aspect of it.
I think, in my area, Chris lives pretty close to me, but in my area, it just is not an easy place to RA at. Like, it's just like when I was doing RA at scale, doing the chlorine and the pools and things like that. Like, I was literally driving like an hour out just so I can find stuff. Like every time I was doing stuff in town, like it just wasn't there. Like, it was very hit and miss. Like you can go to a store and you find 20, and you go to another store and there's absolutely nothing. So, and there's the time aspect of it. If a store is even 20 minutes away, that's really 40 minutes, right? Because you're 40 minutes, it's 20 minutes there and 20 minutes back, let alone like you have to get the cart, you have to go in there, you have to you're walking through the store, you're trying to find the merchandise, and then let's hope that the cashier line is not too long, or they're going to give you problems about your tax exempt certificate, or or give you questions, or calling the manager over why you have 50 of something, right? So as soon as I found that in OA, like, okay, I can pretty much order whatever I want. I know it's gonna pretty much 90% of the time they're actually gonna send it to me. I can get it at scale, and I'm sitting behind my computer. Yes, I'm not gonna get the same margins I'm getting at RA or anything else, but I can get almost at certain suppliers I can get pretty much whatever quantities I want. So
were you when you were going through the transition, were you well versed in sourcing online already, or did you lean on your network to get the leads flowing?
I actually leaned on leads list actually quite a bit. So I actually hit that 2021 area, the October 2021 was actually kind of a perfect time. Leads lists are very, very popular, so you were kind of lucky to get on certain ones. But it was also going into Q4, so of course, whatever you bought was just selling. It was still, pandemic times. But literally, everything you're buying was selling. So I actually got into a little bit of trouble where after Q4, I was still buying stuff off the leads list, not knowing that, the demand wasn't gonna, eat up the supply anymore. And I was getting, stuck with stuff, realizing, okay, then I had to switch again where, okay, if I'm going to use these lists, like I have to start using them a lot of what Chris talks about, where, it's an idea generator. And it's the same way I use it now, right? It's an idea generator where, I can rabbit trail off of that, okay, I can see, our friend Eli, I've kind of talked to Chris about it a little bit, but, if you can get a leads list off of him, you're looking at, you're kind of in his head. You can see where he's sourcing, what coupon codes he's using, what, even list sometimes the gift cards of what he's using. You can literally see these things, which, I would never come across if I was, just trying to do it alone, or, looking around even on Facebook or Twitter or anything else. A lot of people are not releasing, oh, I'm sourcing this or I'm sourcing that. So
we're fans of lead lists, obviously. What do people get wrong about using a lead list in their business?
I mean, I think the most thing, I think people just think, they're the be all end all. And it's, it's really not that. I mean, you can get on and you kind of have to understand the leads that you're in, right? If you're in a leads list with like a ton of other people, there are some that have 40, 50 people. I mean, you have to kind of think that like that lead's not going to last, right? Unless you're looking at the Keepa chart, unless there's a ton of demand for it. I mean, it's really not going to last. But can you look at some other variation of it? Is there, something else on sale here? I mean, there almost always is, right? There almost always is. But then, of course, if you can go to more elite kind of leads list where, there's less people, then you can kind of figure your numbers, 50 to 15 or 10 people even on certain lead lists. I mean, it's a completely different story, right? Mm-hmm. You're not going to be at the most, you have maybe a little bit more than 15 people buying it. But even that, like, if I'm on a lead list, if I get on a leads list, like, I'm not buying every single lead. I'm buying 25% maybe. I mean, you have to look at what leads list you're on and strategically think, okay, what am I getting out of this? How many people are actually going to be buying a certain amount of leads? Let's actually analyze how many sellers are on here. Okay, if 25% of the sellers are buying into this, like, can it take the hit? Am I still going to be okay? Right. And I'll rarely ever go, deep off the bat off of a leads list. Like, it's always like test first. But I mean, some of my best replans have all come off a leads list. It's just stuff that I've stuck with, and other people haven't, or other people have gotten gated on or something.
Nice. So, as you were making that switch from retail arbitrage to online arbitrage, were there any of those moments that just kind of clicked or kind of made you change how you approached your sourcing from retail to OA?
Retail to OA, yeah, it's more of a you just have to understand, like, everybody has access to the exact same stores as us, right? I mean, you're in a retail situation, you're localized, you can kind of get better, usually get better pricing or some kind of proprietary products that way, especially if it's a localized, if it's a local regional store like a Publix for us or something like that. In OA, you just kind of have to realize that your margins are not going to be the same. You're going to have to lower, I can't do these. I used to look for, these higher ROI stuff. I have to understand that velocity matters. Like moving merchandise matters. Like, volume, be able to just turn, constantly be turning. That's pretty much the OA game. I mean, you have to be able to take a little bit lower ROI, but also, understand that you can constantly get these products, and you can constantly, turning something 3 times is better than, a lot of times turning it once.
All right. So I want to unpack that a little bit, because I've talked about, the speed of money, and then a lot of new people, they are like, oh, well, if it's not $3 profit and 30% ROI, it's not for me. So like, what is the basement on the ROI you're looking at? What's the basement on the profit? And what makes you go below, that $3 and 30% ROI that everyone seems to get stuck in when they're new?
All right. I remember that rule of 3 when I first started, right? Is you buy it for $1, you sell it for 3. Amazon takes their $1, you get 100% ROI. And that was the mindset shift too. It was like, it just doesn't happen. In online arbitrage, you might get it every once in a while, but it just doesn't happen very often, right? So it's, it was more, just a mindset shift on that, and just being able to, I'm willing to take like all the way down to like a 20% ROI. I'll go down to even 15%, depending. I buy definitely more expensive items. So if it's in the $80 to $100 range, I mean, making $10-15, I have no problem with that. As long as the return rate's not going to be crazy, or I'm gonna the return rate's not going to be crazy. I can know I'm going to flip the product fast. Like, velocity matters. Velocity matters just as much as almost ROI does to me.
Okay.
Yeah, we might have to snip that part out and post that around there. We love that quote. Right. Hey, so you said that there are things that you things you'd repeat, things you'd skip. Let's kind of do a hypothetical do-over during this transition. What was your biggest waste of time or money during the transition, would you say?
RA to OA was more of a, I mean, I wish I got with a prep center earlier. I mean, that's definitely, like, I do not like prep. I think it's a energy sucking, like just I still prep a little bit from home, and now I have my daughter helping me a little bit, but I think it just sucks so much energy out of you. Like it just I was, I could have just, all I think about when I'm doing prep is, man, I could be buying something, I could be sourcing something, it was just one of those things. I'm just like, God, let's get this out. Like prep was easily like getting a prep center and getting a good prep center where like I could just finally send everything was like taking the shackles off. Like it was like I could fully sprint instead of having, like pulling around this like constant weight of, oh my God, like I have to have, all this stuff in my house. And I always tell people it's not even just the prep. Like if you don't, you have to prep, but then you also have like, you have to unpack everything. You have to figure out what's there, what's not there. You're listing it in whatever software you're using. Then you have to get clean up with all these cardboard. And then of course it doesn't fit in your recycle bin because you have so much stuff and you have to like pack it up on top of that. Like it was never my favorite thing. Definitely prep was the thing.
I feel that. It feels like a 0% ROI activity. Like it's necessary.
It always does. Yeah. I like and I still send stuff home, like I said, but every time I do it, I'm always like sending messages to my Amazon friends. And I'm like, please remind me never to do this again. Right. I'm like, I hate it. Like, why do I do this to myself? Why do I do this to myself?
Yeah. Prep is the best. People who hate on it, I don't understand it.
I do not either. And the people who like it, I don't know what kind of person you are.
Yeah. Thank you for listening to the Clear the Shelf podcast. My magnanimous co-host Chris Rasick has put together a gift for you for being a listener. It's called the Monthly Goal Tracking Spreadsheet, and it's free. The spreadsheet will help you break down and track how much you've purchased, which should be a leading indicator of how much you will sell, and then you'll be able to track how much you've sold as well as your estimated monthly profit on a daily basis. This will all feed into the daily averages so you can ensure that you're on track to meet your goals each and every month. Grab it for free today over at cleartheshelf.com/goal-tracking. Thanks again for being a listener. Now back to the show. So many people, especially people who, are used to doing retail arbitrage and, they want to get into online arbitrage. Yeah, they seem to get stuck in this, like, I'm going to go looking for all the clearance stuff,
Right.
and then it doesn't go so well for them when they switch to OA. So how do you retrain your brain? Like, how do you move from someone who is scanning all the clearance aisles in Targets and Walmarts to looking for items that you can replenish over and over again doing OA?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I still like when I walk into stores, there are very few times I do. I'm always like tempted to walk down there. Actually, I was in a Walmart yesterday, like walking down the clearance aisle. I'm like, actually, the good thing is a lot of stuff I'm actually gated in now. They actually regated me in a lot of these like toys and things like that, so it's a lot easier to just walk away. But the mindset was just, I tell people now that I kind of think of like my OA suppliers as on like a wholesale mindset. So if you can find these suppliers, and there's a lot of them out there where they'll let you just order as much as you can. Like it's just such an easier thing that you can constantly, instead of constantly be looking, I'm constantly looking, I'm looking. Clearance, maybe it's there, it's not there, but if I can get my catalog to the point where I can constantly find these things where I can replenish them over and over again, as long as the price is steady, the seller counts are going crazy or anything else like that. Like I just tell myself it's easier. Like it's so much easier.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go into a little bit of your replenishment strategy. You've built. You say your business is replen heavy as far as the catalog goes. A lot of rinse and repeat. Can you walk us through your process for identifying a product that's worth taking another look at and potentially being a candidate for to be an official replen?
Gotcha. Yeah. I'm pretty quick at it. I like to get through a lot of ASINs as fast as possible. So I'm always having one of the first things, of course, now we have to always look at, make sure, you're checking brands, make sure brands are matching up. I'm always checking price. I mean, it's just, price and seller counts are, basically supply and demand. So, I mean, you're checking the Keepo graph, making sure, the price is not crashing while, the seller counts are going, through the roof or something. I mean, in OA, by the time you get it, you send it in. I mean, you're looking at base best case scenario in 2 weeks, it might be hitting into the to be in stock. And by then, I mean, if you're looking at something like that, I mean, it's probably crashed out, and you're not going to be making any money on it. So yeah, it's just, I'm looking at price stability. I'm looking at, at least a 20% ROI. I'm looking at, seller counts, making sure that's good. And I'm also looking at, okay, is this a store that, is reseller friendly? Am I ever going to buy it over and over again? And can I buy a lot, right? If I only can make, $100 order or, $50 orders at a time, I mean, that's pretty time consuming, right? If I can get it from a supplier that I can order $2,000 at a time, or even $500 at a time, I mean, that makes it a lot easier to, to keep my scale, to keep my weekly spend up. So
I want to unpack something there. You talk about, you've said it a few times. There are sites I can buy a lot from. I want a reseller friendly site. Are there any indicators before making an order that a site may be reseller friendly, that they don't mind you making, buying $1,000 worth of, eyeshadow or whatever else you're going to buy and flip on Amazon?
mhm. I mean, that's kind of a more of a network thing, right? I mean, if you reach out to different networks, I mean, people kind of give you ideas of, okay, what, which stores are, counseling on them, which are not. But I also figured out that, you just kind of have to test it, because, I know some people that can buy tons from like certain suppliers that, for some reason they will never ship to me or automatically cancel. So it's kind of just a testing game, right? Where you can, and I was telling your sellers too, like, you never want to just hit something really hard off the bat, right? Like, you kind of want to like season your account in, like, you want to, start with a smaller order. Okay, they're good. Let me step up a little bit more. Let me step up a little bit more, right? And then, almost no time is it okay where you're, if you're trying to hit a site back to back, unless you know for a fact that it's fine. I mean, that's very suspicious on their algorithm, where, if you're hitting, I just ordered thing, I'm just going to order it again, 5 minutes later, I'm going to order it again 5 minutes later. I mean, you're kind of asking for a cancellation when that happens, right? So, okay. I mean, honestly, it's a testing game. But I mean, there's certain sites where, that, they'll, just from talking to other people or something like that, or they're actually putting the quantity limits on there where, they'll let you buy, 50 of something. So
perfect. You talked about, looking for seller count and looking at price stability, things like that. If you're looking for something that you think is going to be a potential replen and something that you're going to maybe sell for the next, 3 months, 6 months, whatever, what is that like perfect keep a chart look like? What would I want to look for in a keep a chart to buy like Ryan?
I mean, price stability, of course. I mean, you want to see, just price. I mean, and it can go, it can vary a little bit, but you don't want these like big swings of like, people are jumping on it, and it's falling 50%, and then, then all of a sudden everybody gets off of it and you're back up there. In a perfect world, I mean, I still jumping off and time these kind of things. I'm always, trying to keep track of certain things like this using keep alerts or things like that. But, a perfect replan would be, complete price stability, right? With seller counts that are varying a little bit, but, you're not, they're not wildly swinging up and down or anything else like that, right? And of course, just pure velocity. I mean, you want to see, especially with that new Keepa feature, when it's showing you minimum sales they're doing with the yellow line. I mean, if you're looking at something at least 50 or 100, you can kind of figure it out from there using, how many FBA sellers are on there? Are they within, all competitive? Are they, within the top, are they all within 3% of the price? Things like that. You can kind of tell by then. Okay, from there you can even tell how many you should replenish. So
nice.
So how do you diversification is a pretty hot topic these days with the regatings and stuff like that. So I'm curious. I want to ask you about the balance between going deep on your replenishments and testing new products. Do you have an idea what that ratio is for you these days?
Replanning right now is probably 80 to 85% of my business. I actually have to try to consciously make sure that I'm testing new products, because if not, I could kind of get, lulled into just constant replanning. So it's something I actually this last week, I was actually making sure I actually was, I actually sent a bunch of test orders out where, you know, I'm trying, you know, different products, different suppliers, different brands, right? You never want to be more than, you know, I've kind of taken Jeff Storch's advice. I'm trying not to be more than 10% in any brand, right? To not try to be, you know, just a over diversification. He talked about Coach. I mean, I got hit really hard with Coach, but yeah, so I just try to make sure that, you know, diversification wise, you know, I'm staying, you know, within that 10%, which is, you know, sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's not. When you see, you know, you can sell a ton of something in a certain brand, but you also know that, you know, Amazon could, you know, send you the letter and you got 60 days to make sure you have to liquidate everything. So
Maybe they give you 60
maybe,
days.
maybe, yeah. They've been better. They've been better about it lately, though.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
So you mentioned that you like source manually almost exclusively, and you know, in 2025, it's the age of AI. It's the age of, you know, agents doing everything for you, and software going out and sourcing for you. Why do you still do it by hand? What's the upside there?
I think if you can scan something, and, you know, there's, you know, we have all this software these days that can scan, you know, they're matching things up. I mean, we know what they are. In my point of view, if you can scan stuff, and I can almost tell like when people are scanning a certain store, because I mean, you're putting it into the, you know, you're looking it up on Amazon, and it's automatically popping up. If it's automatically popping up, it means like some scanning software is like automatically hitting it, right? But if I can get in there and I can, you know, go to the next step where I'm looking up a different keyword, right? I mean, sometimes the title might not be very well thought out. It might be, you know, I was looking on a buyer, like I said, I was looking at things on a buyer's point of view. So if I can do things manually, I'm literally looking things up like, okay, if I was going to buy this, then I can keyword search, you know, brand, like a Nike shoe or something. Yeah, it's Nike, right? And whatever the name of the shoe is, I'm not going to be typing in, you know, Nike Air Monarch size 13, you know, white. Like nobody puts in something like that. Nobody's that descriptive. Like you can just do kind of broad searches that way. And then from there, you can even rabbit trail off of there where, you know, I'm searching by bestsellers. So I'm looking at other things on there where, you know, I might not have found if I was just, you know, using some scanning software or anything like that.
Mm-hmm. I want to unpack this a little bit further. If you were like, Chris, listen, I want you to source with me for a day, you know, look over my shoulder, see what I'm doing. What would that look like? You know, are we starting with a lead list and then, you know, rabbit trailing off of those? Are we doing some keep a product finder searches? Are we just going to go in and look at our database? Like, kind of walk me through your sourcing day.
I mean, I like sales cycles, so, you know, I'll take a look through, you know, my whatever top 10 suppliers are. You know, I'll just go to their web. I'll just directly go to the website. Sometimes I'm looking through my emails and seeing, okay, what's, you know, what are they sending me? What are they not? But I'm hitting those sites first. Okay, what's on sale? What's not on sale? And then of course, every once in a while, I'm using a leads list. I'll buy, you know, a one-time leads list, or sometimes I'm jumping on and off leads. That's just an idea. Okay, I'm just, you know, literally going through a lot, and a lot of times I'm filtering because with these new regatings, I mean, there's a ton of stuff that I can't even sell, right? I'm in certain categories which I'm perfectly fine in, but, you know, there's other categories like toys that like I'm completely gated in now. So I mean, I can just skip over those on the toys side of it, right, and just focus on whatever categories I'm looking for. So, you know, I'm just always trying to be the most efficient possible. So I'm looking at places where it's the most likely I'm going to find gold, right? So, you know, I'm looking at the categories I know I'm ungated in. I'm looking at the brands that I know I'm ungated in, right? Which is always easier. And the easier part of it that's made it a lot easier recently with the regating is that, you know, certain people can only sell certain brands. So, you know, the competition has been a lot less. Like I don't have to be. I'm not really waiting anymore. Of okay, is the price falling on something? Like some of these things that I'm selling are, you know, the prices actually have gone up like significantly just because the competition has gone down.
Mm-hmm.
Ryan saying the quiet part out loud. You know, we always hear the other side of the regating things, but
right, yeah,
you know, the bright side is pretty sweet if you choose to look in that direction.
I mean, and the margins have been, you know, a lot of sellers I've talked to, you know, they've seen a significant increase in margins, right, at scale. Anyway, you know, if you're at scale and you're able to sell these certain brands, it's just, I mean, your margins have gone up 30-40%.
Yeah, the good news isn't clickable, so nobody talks about it. I'm curious when you find a winner, you know, after you've tested it and you say, all right, this one's good to go. What does going deep actually look like in terms of units and or dollar investment?
So I use Sellerboard and I use their replenishment software on there. Going deep, I mean, I am perfectly fine going hundreds or even and then there's probably a couple of different ASINs I'm on right now that I'm 1,000 deep in. I mean, if the velocity, I'm trying to stay in stock a 30-day stand. I'm trying to stay in stock for 30 days. So if a 30-day supply means 1,000, then I have no problem buying 1,000 and sending it in. Within the parameters, of course, of, the Keepa chart still looking fine, within the parameters of, not trying to get too over leveraged in a certain brand. But yeah, I mean, I have no problem like going really, really deep, especially my top 20% of ASINs. Like, I mean, I'm trying to stay in stock of those as much as possible.
So let's talk a little bit about like your inventory going directly to a prep center. How do you choose the right one? Like that, it's kind of like a marriage, you don't want the wrong one. You don't want to be bickering all the time and things like that. So how do you find that right prep center for you?
Okay. Well, actually, and to be perfectly clear, I actually have 2 prep centers,
Mhm.
and that's strategic. I actually have one in Delaware and
Polygamous.
one in Oregon, right? And the reason people ask me like, "Oh, why do you have 2?" is literally like, I mean, you will run into problems sometimes. Like, you never know, like weather. Weather can like completely shut down the prep center. I've had
Mhm.
prep centers text me about hey, everybody got sick. I can't get anything out for you in a week or 2 weeks, right? But I mean, communication is key. I mean, if you reach out to these people, I mean, they should be communication and service is number one. I mean, forget about price or anything else like that. They have to be able to communicate with you. They have to be able to, and be eager, be very like, you send them a message, and they're willing to do stuff, even to go the extra mile for you, right? If hey, I really need, like, I needed actually like a coupon code or something from a shipment that I had because I needed to replan or reorder something. I literally, I send the message over to my prep center and they're getting back to me within 10 minutes. Yeah, no problem. Let me go look for it for you. And I have it within, 30 minutes, right? Things like that make a huge difference. Okay. So, I mean, that, of course, I mean, price, and then, of course, price matters after that a little bit more. But I mean, communication number one, price service actually number one, communication number two. I mean, those kind of go hand in hand. And then, of course, pricing. And of course, you want to, I mean, for me being in Florida, I mean, of course, you want to kind of be in a tax-free kind of a position where, it actually, I get paid pretty much to send stuff to prep centers, right? I mean, I can't recoup anything if I send it home. A lot of things I'm buying are within the, $30, $40, $50 ranges. I mean, I'm paying $2, $3 in sales tax, and I can get it prep for $1 or $2. I mean, it really doesn't. The arbitrage is a no-brainer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious about. I know you just said you're mostly doing manual sourcing, so I imagine the software stack is probably pretty light. You mentioned seller board as far as like replen management. What does your tech stack, software stack look like? Is it mostly spreadsheets, or do you have some tools sprinkled in?
Like I have some spreadsheets there. I'm tracking, of course. I have a master sheet where I'm listing all my buys, and especially since they're going to 2 different prep centers, I have to make sure I'm tracking it in one place, and that makes it a lot easier. I'm tracking my weekly spend, of course. But besides that, yeah, I mean, my software stack is really not too big. I mean, seller board I use a lot of, ASIN Zen, of course, just for the calculator that comes up. I do have Seller Amp. I mean, I use Seller Amp. I think it's really good for storefront stocking. I mean, I do storefront stock a little bit. So I think it's good for that. I mean, I have Inventory Lab, of course, to help, inventory management. But I mean, besides that, I mean, I really don't. I mean, I'll try a lot of softwares out here and there, but I mean, a lot of it, I mean, it's not. I try to keep the the overhead and the bloat as low as possible. So
That's great. So I saw someone ask you this question, and I thought it was good because it kind of gives an idea of what you need at scale. And so if I want to build an operation like yours, like how much do I need to have tied up in capital or in inventory at any one time?
Right. So currently, I mean, I have about 150,000, but that's also including like things that are going inbound, right?
Mhm.
So at any one time, I want to say it's probably closer to $100,000 to $120,000 worth of, inventory at every one time. So yeah, you're looking right around there, right? I do use a credit card rotation, which, helps quite a bit too. So
Nice. Yeah, and so like there are going to be a lot of people who are going to be like, "Oh, well, how do you get much of that capital?" Can you talk about how you grow the business? Like, you don't have to start with that, of course. You kind of work your way up to that.
right.
How long did it take you to get from where you started to where you are now?
Um,
Especially comfort zone wise. Like, when did you get comfortable spending that kind of money on inventory?
when did I get comfortable? That's probably at least doing OA. It was probably at least 8 months in. I want to say at least 8 months in, right? When you're comfortable, you have a replan catalog. You're okay with that. Um, and then again, like just using the credit card rotation helps a lot, right? And then I also use 0% credit cards, right? So if you can get a 0% credit card, I usually try to get one every right before Q4 every year, right? That helps, right? So you have this, like, if you can get 20 or $30,000 of free money for a year. I mean, that also, especially before Q4, where you can just buy stuff and you're gonna get a great return on it. That will boost your capital up also, right? Um, and also just paying attention. I do profit first. I do the profit first method. So I'm very, like, weekly. I'm also in there. I'm making sure that everything is, I'm watching my cash flow. Okay, inventory, what's OpEx, looking like every month. I'm keeping track of my. I'm constantly keeping track of all my software expenditures, VA expenditures. I've put that into seller board by the day, so I can, when I'm looking at seller board report, I can see everything. So yeah. Well,
So where do you fall on the ROI versus margin scale? Do you have a metric that is the primary driver, and do you have like minimum thresholds for those set up?
right. ROI, I think, is good for the micro. So when you're looking at products, I think that it's a good measurement. I use ROI for, product wise. I want to look for, like I said, a 20% ROI. I'll go down to 15 if it's a more expensive product. And I think margin is good for the macro, right? So I rarely ever look at my ROI if I'm looking at, like, my entire month's report. Like, I literally just glance right over it. Like, I don't even care. Like, but margin is what I'm looking at, right? So I want to see what my net margin is, right? So margin is, like I said, a better, I think, picture of the macro, where I think ROI is very good on the micro level.
Yeah.
Okay. So you just talked about using a credit card strategy. You're rotating through credit cards. Can
Mhm.
you walk us through that a little bit more in depth? Like, how are you rotating through these? And well, yeah, let's start there.
I know you made a really good post about it, but yeah, it was actually that was actually a very big game changer. I mean, this is one of the things that really helped scale too, right? And it was funny because it only came to me in passing. I want to say actually in 2022, or actually in 2022. I was actually at a conference and someone just said it to me in passing. They're like, "Oh yeah," I was actually in an elevator with him, and he's just like, "Hey, did you hear about rotating your credit cards?" And I kind of got more into it and researched into it. And I was like, yeah, why am I not doing this? So, basically, if on the most basic level, you want to have at least 4 credit cards, right? So you have, one that the statement date starts on the first, one that starts on the seventh, actually 5 cards. So 14th, 21st, 27th, 28th. I don't know if you can there's a weird thing where you can't push your credit card statements to the 28th or something like that, or the 27th or something like that. So you're taking one credit card. As soon as the statement date starts, you're doing your entire spend on that within, hopefully within the first, 3 or 4 days. And then, your actual due date for that is not going to be till, 45 to 50 days later, depending on which credit card site you're using, right? And then, the next week you're hitting your seventh, you're the one that hits the seventh, you use the next, then you use the next credit card, next credit card, next one, 7th, 14th, 21st, 28th. And if you do it properly and you have the right velocity, right? I mean, and you can do this with OA. Everybody does things like it takes so long, but if you have, a good prep center, you have something that's moving fast enough, you can literally get your money back in time. And then you have a So you have a 45-day, sometimes $100,000 credit line, or $150,000 credit line, depending on what your card limits are. So that's huge. I mean, that makes such a big difference on cash flow. So, and I remember actually I just saw Alex Hormozy actually just released a TikTok which I saw where he talks about this. I'm like, how do you scale? How do you scale without taking outside money in? And he's like, I do this for pretty much all my companies, where as long as I can acquire the customer, and I'm getting twice as much as it is to acquire the customer within 30 days. I mean, you literally can just scale to the moon. He's like, you're just literally just stacking cash upon cash upon cash, and you just keep growing, and you're just literally just putting the money back into customer acquisition. Well, for us, the only difference is, of course, you're instead of putting it into customer acquisition, we're just keep on putting it into inventory. So, you can literally just keep scaling up and up and up, right?
Absolutely. I know you guys like to travel and stuff like that. What are your top 1 or 2 or even 3 credit cards for stacking cash back or points or anything else?
Well, I mean, we have all 3 of the major ones. Chase Inc. is usually my favorite, though. You know what I mean? Chase Inc. is definitely my favorite. Venture is good, of course, and then American Express. We have all 3 of them. They all have different transfer partners. I'm actually not that great on transfer partners, but it's actually it's another thing that scaling at my level, it makes a very big difference on that part, right? Just the cash back adds up to be quite a lot. I broke it down to somebody else recently, where like I'm spending close to 80,000 a month. So if you break it down that way, let's just use Chase as an example. If it's 80,000 a month, that means I'm getting 120,000 Chase points, which is $1,200 in travel spend, right? But then if you play the game where you switch it over to your Sapphire Reserve, you get another 50% bonus on top of that. So you have $1,800 to spend every month in travel. So people wonder, oh, how do you travel with 4 people? I mean you can travel pretty easily at $1,800 a month. And that's not even including the sign up bonuses and everything else on top of that, right?
Yeah.
So
that reminds me, I probably need to go apply for another credit card or 2 for Q4.
Q4 is coming up.
Yeah. I'm also curious how you can actually see Alex Hormozy talking about anything besides his new book. I don't. It
was tied to his new book. It was definitely
okay. All right.
Yeah,
I was gonna say
very soon, but yeah, it was tied to his new book. That's actually part of his book. It was like one of those snippet things.
Okay.
How many copies of his new book have you guys purchased?
Oh, I didn't do that huge. I mean, I purchased 1. I didn't do that whole.
Okay.
Was it 100 he wanted?
I didn't buy that many, but I bought a couple. So if you guys don't have one, I'll get you one.
All right. Sounds
nice.
Good.
So doubling down on cash flow, I want to hang out there for a minute. How do you the seller's orange bars? It's not the flat plains, it's not a horizontal line like a great keep graph. It's a mountain range essentially.
Right.
So I'm curious, when you're constantly reinvesting in inventory, what tips would you give on cash flow management, especially moving into a slower period when you're buying that much inventory?
So you're talking about more like if you're going from so transitioning out of Q4, maybe? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, that would be the obvious time period that we could talk about.
Right. So the way I do it every week is I take my spreadsheet every Monday. It's pretty much religiously every Monday. I'll go back and I'll do my profit first spreadsheet. And I do profit first a little bit different because I don't want Amazon holding on to that much money. I know a lot of e-commerce sellers do that 2-week thing, and I don't want Amazon holding $40,000 of my money. No, thank you. So I have a daily pay where I can request daily payout. So I just track that for a whole week. And how I do it is actually I make sure my cost of goods are always updated in Sellerboard. I'll run a report for the previous week, and whatever the cost of goods was for that previous week, which it'll give you, I'll take that number and I'll multiply it by 5% more. And then I'll take that number, and that's my weekly spend for that week. So I'm making sure that whatever what I'm selling and what I'm spending is completely correlated. So I'm not overspending, and I'm also trying to stay as consistent as possible. So of course, when there's Prime Week, and sales are through the roof, of course, I have to make sure I'm replenishing my inventory on top of that. So, my weekly spend the week after that, which I didn't actually wait for that entire week. I want to kind of take advantage of Prime sales. So I started spending ahead of time, knowing that, okay, my cost of goods sold are going to be up 50%. So I also need to make sure I'm replenishing that amount. So, I make sure it's completely correlated between what's selling, what my cost of goods is, and, so cash flow that way, it's completely, in a cycle where, I'm never worried about, okay, can I pay this bill or can I not pay this bill? Because I overspent 1 week and I didn't spend enough in this other week.
All right, let's transition a little bit to like building a team. I know you've kept it pretty lean, but like, what tasks are you handing off to your team members, and how did you train them and get them to be able to maybe not replace you, but at least augment what you're doing?
I mean, this is an ongoing process for me. So it's like I said, it's still a lot of the stuff I'm doing, but I mean, of course, sourcing, I have a VA that does sourcing, but she's also, helping with some ops stuff now. She came to me, I use a lot of videos. There's a very big time difference between the two. I don't expect it to be up till, 9 or 10 o'clock at night when I'm starting to work and things like that. So I do a ton of like Loom videos. A big hack that I've seen before is actually taking the Loom video. You can actually, Loom has a transcript on the side of you just talking and saying whatever you want. You can take that, put into ChatGPT, and it literally will spit out a SOP for you in 5 seconds, or it's pretty much done, or you just have to kind of take a look through it, and so you can send a Loom video literally with a document with an SOP on top of that. So as an ADHD person, I mean, that's like godsend.
That's a pretty good hack.
Yeah, that was a very good one, because I would never sit down and write an SOP.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Not only that, but then to realize that that's available. We've talked about like kind of getting used to the fact of the massive amount of use cases that something like ChatGPT can help you with.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, I mean, just like I love it. Like I tell somebody, it's like having a nerd in your pocket. Like, it's just you just have so much power, and just I'm thinking of like all these like creative ways, and most of them are actually more on the personal side of things. I'm using different prompts and things like that just to move things forward. And of course I'm using it for business too, but it's actually more on the personal side. I use it. So
it's actually a number one use case for ChatGPT is companionship and therapy. I just saw that today.
So, yeah, really?
Yep. Yeah. So continuing on the team building, what point did you realize you needed help? And then there's the flip side to that, is resisting the urge to hire too many people. So can you talk about that balance a little bit?
Right. Well, from the restaurant, like I always wanted to keep my team small. I don't want to manage a lot of people. Like, I just have a bad connotation knowing that if I'm relying on these people, and it's not just that. Like, if I want to travel or something like that, like I have to constantly making sure that I have to keep if I had somebody here, then I have to constantly prepping or something like that. I have to constantly have stuff coming here the entire time, right? If I'm here, I'm not here. Like, I have to keep them paid and busy. Like, I don't have to constantly have that. So, knowing that prep was going to be an issue, like, that was the first thing. Like, I mean, I just knew that, once I could get prep off my table and out of my house without, boxes everywhere where my entire living room looks like a warehouse, then I knew, that would be, that's a very good turning point. So
makes sense. What, at the peak of boxes in the living room, how many units were you turning that were coming through the house?
It wasn't even that much yet. Like, I didn't really scale. I mean, during the FBM days, I mean, it was a lot of stuff, but I mean, I switched to a prep center. I was at like maybe 50,000 a month. So I'm guessing it wasn't even that much. I want to say, I know something more expensive stuff. So I want to say maybe 1,000 units, maybe 1,300. Like, it wasn't even that much. Like, I couldn't even imagine like what, like, I mean, I'm doing like 3,000 plus units a month. So if I had everything coming through now, I mean, it would be a madhouse with all the kids' toys around and,
right,
cardboard all over the place. I can imagine, like, it would be a madhouse in there.
You actually send your daughter's doll into FBA, and man, she'd be ticked.
Yeah, they do like to draw on the boxes though. I have to say that they do like to draw on boxes.
Oh, that's great.
Boxes, yeah.
So you mentioned some mindset shifts that kept you moving forward when things got a little tough. What's the biggest obstacle you've had to overcome, and how did your mindset play into that?
Mhm. I mean, I think the one of the harder things, like somewhat recently, was the whole coach gating, right? We're kind of stuck with that in 2023, I think it was, right? And like over 30% of our catalog was actually in coach. So it was one of those, like, we got hit hard, and I still have coach purses like laying around in storage and stuff. But it was just one of those things that you just have to, and it's kind of the reason why I started posting a lot more. It's always like doom and gloom everywhere. But I think, people, you just have to expect it. Like, expect it. Like, something bad is going to happen, or you're gonna have these fraudulent returns, or you're gonna have Amazon change something on you. They're gonna gate you on a brand. Like, it's gonna happen. Like, it's gonna happen. It happens to all of us. Like, it's going to happen. I mean, mitigate it as much as you can, but knowing that, just realizing that it's going to happen and expecting it completely. Now it's just, when it does happen, I'm like, oh, okay, that's fine. Right? It's inevitable. So why sit here and stress about it? Right? Mitigate as much as you can. Why are you gonna stress about it? And literally, like, go out and find another ASIN, find another brand. Right? I mean, just the more time you're dwelling on, like, what could have been, like, Amazon's not gonna change their gate they just put on you. Like, I mean, just get back out there and find something else.
That's strong advice that not enough people are going to take to heart. It's we don't give any credit to the amount of unforeseen problems that we've solved, and kept moving. So, Ryan, so for somebody, let's take somebody who you mentioned being stuck in, I think you said the 20 to 40,000 range. Let's even take that up to 50 to 100,000 per month range. For somebody who's stuck on that plateau and wants to get to your level, what would you tell them the one thing they should focus on versus the 10 things on their to-do list they think they need to do?
Again, I think you really have to do, I know you guys talk about the 80-20 rule a lot. I think just making sure that, like, the top 20% of your ASINs are, like, in stock. You're focused on, and of course that's constantly gonna be rotating, right? Of what's in and what's not. But I think constantly just making sure that's in stock. Honestly, I think if most people just did that, I mean, it'd be a huge change in their business. Right? I mean, your fastest moving ASINs are just forever in stock, or you even got some subscribe and save things coming up because you're always in stock. And like I said, just the amount of the buy boxes that Amazon gives you just because you're in stock is going to change your business.
It so often, what seems like the simplest solution is the right solution as well.
Right. Yeah.
All right, let's do a little rapid fire. I always like this. What's been the biggest win in your Amazon business so far?
Definitely family time. I think,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure that's, resonated with a lot of people, the amount of how I've been able to structure the business and everything else, to be able to, like, I never like to say we have freedom, because, freedom is more like F you money, but, I think that we have flexibility, which is, the second best thing, where, we can pick up and do what we want. I don't have to, ask anybody to, I need some time off, or, for me, it was like, I don't constantly have to be on call from knowing that somebody called out the restaurant, or, they're too busy, or this thing happened or that thing happened. So definitely family time.
Great.
Nice. What's the biggest sourcing mistake you think others should avoid?
Ooh, sourcing mistake. That was a little bit more difficult. Just be careful. Like, I think people should niche down a lot more. They should, people, I think, try to keep doing, too many things. I think there are very few sellers that sell in, like, multiple categories. Like, almost all of us, like, are niche down to 3 probably, right? Like, you can't be, like, good in toys and hardware and, crafts and doing all these, like, different things. Like, the better sellers, I mean, you guys know them. I mean, they're pretty much all niche down to, like, 1 or 2 categories, maybe at the most 3.
Okay. What's one of your favorite Keepa stats or features that you don't see people talk about a lot?
I don't know, nobody talks about it, but I love that new yellow line. That new little line is it. But I mean, besides that, I think seller counts, I don't think a lot of people talk about seller count enough. I mean, I literally use seller count as supply. I mean, you can literally look at you're looking at seller counts most of the time, and you're literally looking at the amount of supply that's in the system. So, you know, if you can see both things, if you're able to see, if you're buying a stock, you would actually be able to see the supply and demand. I mean, maybe, you know, it'd be a piece of cake. I mean, it's not, I don't think it's that much different when you're buying an ASIN. So
Perfect.
It's powerful. That's twice in 2 days, a seller count, the info available. It's got to be underrated at this point. Next question, competing against Amazon on a listing, for or against, why or why not?
Oh, 100% for. I have actually multiple ASINs right now, and I don't know how, but I'm actually priced under Amazon, and they're letting me have the buy box, and they're completely okay being $20, $30 ahead of me. I think Amazon is not very good at running that part of the business. I mean, they run out of stock a lot. You know, they love to squeeze their suppliers a lot. It's which, you know, you can see they're, you know, that's how the suppliers don't care to deal with them too much. So, you know, I'm 100% for, yeah. If you can get against Amazon, as long as, I mean, you're profitable, and, you know, my rule is, you know, you always have to be kind of, your repricing can be set, you know, 3-4% under them. I mean, I think you can easily compete against them.
Nice. What's a book that you've read, a podcast that you've listened to, or a video that you've watched that's had a real impact on you, either your business or personally, in the last 3 months?
I've loved the Mindset Mentor podcast. That's been a really big help for me. You know, Rob Dial, the guy who does that, you know, he just gives you really actionable things, and that's actually helped me quite a bit. You know, scaling my workload down to 20 hours per week. You know, him just telling you know, showing you how to be focused, and, you know, not giving yourself too much time. You know, if you give yourself 40 hours, you'll take 40 hours. You give yourself 20, you'll take 20. Like, you'll figure out ways to, you know, get it to 20. And then recently, Diary of the CEO is really good. I mean, long form podcast content, but I mean, it's like 2.5, 3 hours every single one. But I mean, everybody's interviewing is like, you know, really like top shelf, but, you know, they get to go to super in depth. I think it's better than, you know, reading a book or anything like that, because you get to, you know, hear this very up to date, you know, very, very interesting topics, right? So.
Perfect. I'll have to check out both of those. I've heard of one of them, haven't listened to it yet. I know people are going to want to reach out to you. They're going to want to follow you. Where should I send people to learn more about you?
Well, on X, at Arbitrage Life, on Instagram, Ryan Kimura, FBA, and on Facebook, I believe it's also at Arbitrage Life. So I'm trying to post more. I don't want to, you know, I'm trying to make sure that, you know, us older people get the word out a little bit more too. So.
little elder millennial need some
right, exactly,
need some representation.
Right.
Exactly.
I get you. Yeah, we can't let the kids, you know, keep taking over. So
right. Well, perfect. I'll make sure links to your profiles are below. But we always like to end the show with a quote of the week, and this one I thought fit. It's from Sam Carpenter. It says, "The goal isn't to build a business that depends on you, but one that works because of the systems you created." And I think you've done a pretty good job kind of creating these systems and the way you do things. So Ryan, this was great. I appreciate you hanging out with us and chatting about your business, man.
Thank you, guys. It's an honor.
All right. That's the pod, everybody. We'll catch you in the next episode.
Thanks for listening to Clear the Shelf with Chris and Chris. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a screenshot on your phone and share to Facebook, Instagram, or your favorite FBA group, and be sure to tag me and let me know why you liked it and what you'd like to hear more from us in the future. Also, I'd like to give you some free gifts for listening. Head over to rabbittrailchallenge.com and repricerchallenge.com for some free courses to further your business. Thanks for listening.